Danielle Shay joining us as per usual on a Thursday, VP of Options over at Simpler Trading, to give you more insight on earnings season and what is still to come this earnings season. Some of the biggest names on the planet, Danielle, let's be honest, coming up next week, in fact. Before we get into that, let's take a quick look back here because it's been a wild ride, to say the least, this week. Give us your thoughts on Netflix to start here, because what a disaster that was. Going back a couple of days ago, and then we'll get into Tesla as well.
Well, when you look at Tesla and Netflix in particular, these are really going to be the first tech stocks that are reporting, Netflix especially. And what the market does post Netflix is just absolutely crucial for, market participants' psychology in the beginning of earnings season. Now, I was really bearish going into Netflix earnings, primarily because they normally trade lower after earnings. Last quarter, they completely tanked. They've been in a downtrend. They've raised prices. They have so many competitors. But the main reason why I was looking at Netflix was because I was highly concerned that they were going to bring the entire, NASDAQ down with them. And that's exactly what's happening here. I mean, even after Tesla's phenomenal report, it wasn't enough to bring the NASDAQ higher. So, I think we're going to be for a world of pain next week, unless you're short, of course.
It's a great point in the sense that, I saw somebody posted the other day, is it time to take the N out of FANG? Because it's getting to that, point where it's maybe not that important anymore, but holding down, I guess, is the best way to say it, the entire market today. And even Tesla, coming off just an absolute blowout report, can't really do much with the overall environment because of the negativity.
Well, and that speaks to investor sentiment right now. When you have such a fantastic report, and of course, you always have so many people wanting to bet against Tesla. There's a lot of Elon haters out there, right? But nobody can deny the fact that he's absolutely crushing it. And so when you look at, the initial reaction last night, when I was looking at the initial reaction on Tesla on earnings, it really wasn't up that much after hours. And it kind of seemed to me like a lot of the news was priced in because, there's already been the cyber rodeo. We know that the Berlin factory is open. We already got the delivery numbers this quarter. There wasn't really any major new news, right? Now, of course, by the time the market opened, it was up a little bit more. But the way that this price is fading right now is bad news for next week, because if that stock cannot even hold after that report, for any company that reports next week, if they can't manage to make numbers, they're going down. And we're seeing, pretty much all of the major COVID stocks that were so much fun to trade to the upside, just getting completely creamed right here. And I think they're going down even more along with Netflix.
Is there a trade, I guess, is the best way to kind of look at this? Like you said, a lot of these moved a long way already. Is it, okay now to start looking for opportunities?
Oh, for sure. I'm shorting left and right here. And I've gotten some criticism for it for sure. I'll go on different segments and people will say, no, it's time to buy. Everything's on sale. And it's like, when you're a trader and you watch the price action every day and you can see just the weakness out there, we're in a downtrend. We're in a downtrend. For me, I love riding trends, and people will think, oh, it's not possible for Netflix to go lower. Yeah, it's possible for it to go lower. If nobody's coming in and buying it, it's not going to go higher. And so, when you're looking at, I have Carvana, Etsy, PayPal, Roku, Wayfair, Upstart, Twilio, Yeti, Pinterest, Snapchat, Herbalife, Trip. I've got a long list: Roblox, Beyond Meat, Shopify, Teladoc, Zillow, Baba, Spotify. Pretty much everything that was hot in 2020 and 2021. Now, of course, at some point, the tide's going to turn and there's probably going to be a short squeeze, and it'll be the time to come in and buy some of these shares at a discounted price, but it's not yet.
I want to touch on Snapchat, but before we get into what's to come next week, obviously, Facebook and Apple, I know you love trading those. Give us your thoughts. Snapchat aftermarket tonight, how do we look at this?
So, when I look at Snapchat, it is one of the tickers that's on my list of one that could potentially be pummeled into the ground, but I'm actually not going to trade this earnings report because it's really inconsistent when it comes to earnings. At least over the last 4 quarters, you've seen 3 really positive reactions. Last quarter in particular, it was up 44% on earnings. So it's, even though the chart pattern looks like Netflix right now, I feel like because they have done better on earnings, it's probably not a great idea to come short it right before the report. But at the same time, when they miss, they get completely hammered. So on this one, I'm going to watch it. I'm going to see what it does overnight. If it does get crushed, we can ride the trend tomorrow, but I'm going to stay out of this one.
Some good opportunities to come tomorrow on a name like Snapchat. Coming up next week, Apple, Facebook, the 2 main ones. There's many others. Alphabet as well, set to report next week. Is there one maybe that you're really focused on, and if so, which, and how are you going to play it?
So, Facebook is getting crushed right now, and I think it deserves it for a variety of reasons. I think that we can continue trading Facebook to the downside until earnings comes, because right now what you're seeing in the market is panic. It's like, oh my gosh, what if this happens to whatever other stock that happened to Netflix? So I think we can trade stocks like Facebook lower pre-earnings. The only 2 exceptions are going to be Apple and Google. Apple and Google are like the last shot that the NASDAQ has to hold it together. Google normally crushes it on earnings. They've done phenomenal over the course of the past several years. But remember, and I remember we were talking about this one at the time, remember last quarter how it gapped up, made a new high, and did exactly what Tesla was doing today, and it just completely rolled. So I think that Google and Apple both are going to be just like a guiding beacon. If the NASDAQ cannot hold up, if these stocks cannot hold up, we're going to have a very, very nasty sell in May and go away. I would love to say that they're like the 2 stocks that would do well, but in this environment, I think it's going to be really tricky.
Yeah, important week, definitely to come. Twitter, I want to get your thoughts on Twitter here. We've had more, additional information coming out today talking about some sort of revamped bid that Twitter apparently has in possession from Elon. He's apparently got financing lined up, if not already secured. We've had so many questions, Danielle, on how to play this from an option standpoint. Are you, first of all, and second of all, what's the best way to look at it?
So, with this one, I haven't touched it recently just because, there's so much headline risk. For me personally, it's either Elon buys it and we trade it up to, 54.20 that he said he was going to buy it at. Because at that point, if he's going to buy it at 54.20, you can trade it from, see what the current price is at 46. So if he can buy it, there's definitely upside move there. But if he cannot pull this off, it is a short, so fast. So, right now, because of the volatility, you could definitely come in and you could sell calls or you can sell puts. But really in this kind of situation, I would almost rather just make a bet in either direction. Like if you think Elon's going to buy it, you can try to buy the stock, you can try to buy calls on it. Or if you think he's not going to be able to get it, you could buy puts or sell the stock. But for me, because of all the headline risk, I would honestly just rather wait until we get more of a confirmed answer and then trade the momentum move. Because right now, it's just basically trading sideways because nobody knows what's going on. So.
Hey, Danielle, I want to thank you. And how are you doing? I want to thank you for coming on the show again. You're getting a lot of love on the chat, and we really appreciate all your knowledge. So thank you once again for taking time out of your day for coming on here.
I love your show. I love coming on here.
I think it's better than the other show that you're on, but we'll keep that between ourselves right now. Okay, you made a good point about Google there. For me, I've already talked about this earlier this morning, and it's make or break for a lot of these names here. I think the most important name coming through is going to be Facebook, just because of what's happened to it. I know there's a lot of people, including myself, that are long this name and really just now have to ride it out because it's starting to break new levels here, 200 gone. But this Google chart right now, if we don't hold like this 2,500, which we're not doing right now, but I'm more talking about off earnings. Their last earnings was fantastic. We spiked from these lows all the way back to 3,000 that exact day. And then, of course, what I want to talk to you about, though, is the split that's coming in July. I know you've talked about this on the show before. Does anything change? And this is coming from our guests, so that's why I'm going to ask it to you one more time. But does anything change when you're looking at options as far as how to play possibly Google? Is there something in your experience that, once a stock splits, maybe how how many days after that split, there's going to be people starting to write options on these names? Because if it's going to split 20-1, then this name becomes $140 or, well, depending on what the price is at that point, but down to $100. And that's obviously something that a lot of our viewers, and I'm sure a lot of traders that follow you are interested in. How, where do you start to look at trading options? Is it maybe a month after the split, or, how soon once they're finally available?
So when you're looking at Google, I think that where they really screwed up was they announced their split way too early. And so it didn't give it the same momentum that Tesla had, that Apple had, that NVIDIA had, because the news kind of came and went, but we have to remember that they're still going to split and it's still a bullish event. So what I have been doing with this is, first of all, you really have to separate it between like what's happening right now and what we could do later in July. Because right now, this is very, very bad sign for it to be breaking down, making basically a new low in 2022. But I'm looking at this chart and I'm thinking, yes, because I want to buy the shares. And I specifically want to buy the shares so that I can write options on it, because it's going to split and then you'll have more. And so do you know when the date is in July? Because I would say like 5-6 weeks before the split is really the time where I would try to start getting into it. I'm going to start buying shares here now, honestly, because it's a new low on 2022 and I'm going to keep buying them up into the split. But as far as trading options, I would say like start looking at it 5-6 weeks ahead of time. I would want to really be in it before the split. And if that's not possible, then I would get in after the split and try to ride that move. Because what happens when it splits is that people come in and buy it because it's cheaper, right? So it usually pushes the price higher.
Yeah, it's the 15th of July is when they're going to split there. But I don't know. For me, I'm going to wait until earnings comes out, although I love these levels right now. And I actually did buy Google a couple days after they came out with that split announcement. And I think you're dead on with that. Like, why in the world did they announce it in January only to say, 7 months from now is when we're going to do this? I think that was a huge mistake. Apple, for example, we talked about this, I think it was a couple days ago. They announced in July that they were splitting, and then they split September 1st or something. So you had all of July, then all of August, which was a crazy ramp up. Actually went up 30-something% in the month of August before fading in after the split. So I think there's some interesting talk there. Okay, I don't have too much else to talk to you about other than you mentioned that you're going hella short right now. But what about, I'm hella long everything in my investing account. Is it tough for you to distinguish between the two? And again, I know you've been on here talking about this again, and I want to buy things for the longer term, but do you write, potentially options against your current positions, or you just kind of leave your investments to the side and then trade your options accounts and maybe your swing accounts differently, or do you hedge against some of your long-term plays?
So, I do have a variety of accounts. So I have two main investment accounts that I do not look at on a regular basis. And the reason for that is because of market action like this, right? Because it's like, all right, you know what? That's for 5-10 years down the line. I know Mr. Softy, I'm going to steal your word there, is getting creamed right now, but I love Microsoft and I'm staying in it. And I don't even want to look at that because I don't even want to be tempted to think that I need to sell my Microsoft, because I don't. So I have those accounts where they're actually cash accounts. So I can't even write calls or puts on them. What I do is I just regularly transfer money in, and then I just regularly buy shares of stock, and I just slowly grow that over time. So, for those, it's just one of those things where it's like, when the market's down like this, that's my time where I want to add more. I transfer money. When the market's down, add more. So I'm not writing calls in that account. And then I do have an active trading. Well, I have two active trading accounts. One of them where, yes, I do have some stock as well. And on that account, yes, I will sell calls because I have margin and everything like that. So I do sell calls on AMD, I do sell calls on Apple. And I mean, it helps with, the kick in the teeth that we've gotten this year for sure. But as far as my options account, that is only options. And so when I say that I'm super short, like all of my short-term trades right now are all short, every single one of them. But I mean, I'm not going to bail on my long-term investment accounts. And the one that I can trade options in, yeah, I'm selling covered calls.
Danielle, Shay, always great advice. And again, chat loves you. Just promise me that you'll be back here next week.
Of course.
Good, good. Danielle Shay, VP of Options at Simpler Trading. We love it. Thank you for coming on again, and have yourself a fantastic weekend. We'll see you next week.
Thanks, you too.
Ciao.